Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Marie and today we are working on a new project. I know it's been a while since I've uploaded. Life has been pretty crazy around here between recovering from a surgery that I had a few months ago to changing jobs to quitting that job. You know, life is just crazy, and you know, sometimes it throws some curveballs and it stops you from doing those things that you enjoy. But you know, I'm back and I wanted to show you guys something that I've been working on for quite some time. I've been working on a hexi quilt. Now this isn't the actual quilt I'm working on, this is a different one. I'm working on a smaller sized quilt, but I thought I would bring you along to the process of how I do this and see if you are interested and if it helps teach you a little bit about paper piecing and the fun that it can bring into your journey of quilting. So today I am working on 1/2 inch hexagons. Now I don't really have a goal or a plan in mind. I'm thinking this is just gonna be some, you know, pieces for a scrap quilt, which is my favorite type of quilt. I love the scrappy look. So that is what I am thinking I'm going to be doing. So I have got all of the supplies that I use when I paper piece in front of me for you guys to see. Now obviously you're going to need some scissors. I just have a basic pair of Westcott scissors. I think I may have picked these up at Walmart. I'm not sure, but they're, you know, they're pretty good scissors. They work for what I need them to do. They cut fabric really well, and my kids have yet to use them on paper. So these are great. I think I picked them up for maybe like $10 and it came in a set of 2. So I like these scissors. The other thing is glue. If you choose to paper piece with glue, not everyone enjoys using it because it is kind of sticky, but there's many options. I mean, I like a few different choices. I've got Elmer's glue, that's the purple disappearing one because you can see where you've applied the glue, so I like that. This is just a dollar store glue that works as well. Or there's the Soline. Now Soline is, you know, pretty well known for being a great glue stick to use. I do like it. I have used it. The only thing that I have a hard time with Soline is the price. So for like a refill with like 3 refills, it's like $7 to only get 3 of these, and it only lasts me for just a little while. I don't get as much use out of it that I would like. So I do like the inexpensive glues of these choices when I'm paper piecing. So I'll show you how I use all of them. I mean, these two are the same, so I'm just going to probably use the purple so you can see it. But that's basically how I work with glue. I mean, make sure if you do use a glue that's not made for fabric, that it's at least washable and that it is acid free. So like if you see on this one, it shows you that it's acid free and photo safe. That's just the main thing you want to make sure when you're choosing your glue. Is that it does have that disclaimer on it, and I believe that this purple disappearing glue is acid free. I can't remember, but I believe it is. If not, sorry, I'm still going to use it. The other thing I like to use is a thimble. This is a Clover coin thimble, size medium. I really enjoy this one. Now for me, where the coin sits is not where I actually tend to hit the needle with. I tend to hit it down here. So if for some reason I pop through and start to wear down the thimble, I use those leather dots that you can get as well that are used for sewing, but I'll stick them on the inside, especially like when this starts to loosen up. As it gets older, the leather starts to stretch, and so it doesn't fit as well. So those leather dots will actually give me a little bit more security inside where my finger is set really tight within the thimble itself. I've gone through quite a few of these. My dogs tend to really like them, so don't leave them where your dogs can get them, because for some reason once you start to use them a lot and you know your hands, they start to sweat, dogs tend to like to play with them. So but they work really well. I really do enjoy these ones. I've tried other types of thimbles. This is the one that I've settled down to because of the way it fits my finger and how comfortable it feels on my hand. And then the other one is needles. So these are straw needles. They're size 11. I believe I picked these up off of Etsy. There's 16 in here. They're I think it's Gina Kimball's Foxglove Cottage straw needles. They are really good. I really like them. I've used a lot of different types of needles as well. These ones are just thick enough that, I mean, they're just strong enough that you don't break the needle, but they're thin enough that they don't hurt your fingers when you're using them. So like if you use a really thick needle, it really starts to hurt your fingers as you're sewing through them, because you're making a lot of stitches by hand, and so for the thinner the needle, the finer the stitch in, the better it shows in the actual piece. So really like these needles, recommend them a lot. So I hope you can see that. I don't know if you can see the name on there, but I like these needles. And then the last thing is thread. I prefer cotton thread. There are people that like to use polyester. Me personally, I like cotton. I believe this is a Connecting Threads, I want to say, is where I got this from, I believe, but the number is 20868, but I believe that's what type of thread this is. But I've used other cotton threads and they've been fine, but with the size of this needle and the eye of the needle, it is very small, so threading my needle can be tedious. But I use this on my machine and it works really well on my machine, so I like that. Other options that you have for basting your hexagons is thread basting. Now I've got a very old spool of polyester thread that's an all-purpose Coats and Clarks. It's just polyester, so you can use this as well to baste with. I don't like thread basting. I think it takes a lot of time. I do thread baste though on my very small ½ or quarter-inch hexagons, and I'll show you how I do that with these. But you can thread baste if you prefer that method. It's just not my preferred, so I don't tend to do it. So I'm not going to be doing that here. Now these are smaller hexagons. These are a ½ hexagon that I've made myself, and if you're interested, I do sell them in my Etsy shop, which there's a link to that in my description. But yeah, so these are a ½ inch, if you guys can see that. So I'm gonna get started here. I'm gonna get you some fabric pieces pulled out here, and I will show you how we baste our hexagons, and then we'll sew them together. Alright guys, so I've got some fabric cut out for us, and I'm going to show you how to make this work with your paper pieces and how to baste them. There's a bunch of different methods of basting, but I'm going to use the glue method, like I discussed earlier, going over those methods with you on how to baste. Now, my shapes for my fabric are not cut perfectly, and I do that on purpose because you don't need perfect pieces of fabric in order to make them work with your shapes. Now, if you're going for a fussy cut where you want to get a precise picture within your from your fabric onto the hexagon shape itself, you want to be a little bit more careful with your cuts. Like this one with this little cat outline, I made sure I cut it close to the size, and I tried to make sure that my cat image was within the restrictions of the paper piece itself. So I'm going to start with this one and show you how to baste it, and we'll get going on all of the other pieces, and we'll show you how they all look once they're done. So you want to put your paper on the back side of your fabric, so the pretty side is going to go facing down, and then you put your paper on the back side, and you want to make sure around all of the edges you have close to 1/4 inch. You can go as small as 1/8 inch. I don't recommend that, but you can if you'd like. And this one, as you can see, it's over, but that's not a problem. It gives you a little bit more bulk, but you're going to have bulk with this type of method. And you're going to take your glue and you want to put it on the inside like that, and try and stay, like I got a little bit close to the outside here, but it's okay. But you want to try not to get the very edge of the paper piecing, but I like to make sure that I catch this side as well. Now before my glue dries, I'm going to push it down, make sure it sticks, and then you just rotate, and then you just go again. And you're not putting a lot of glue. You want to make sure you put enough for it to stick, but you don't want to overly glue it either, because you don't want to have a bunch of globs of glue within your fabric. This is washable though, so it will come out. And I've noticed too, the longer that they set, the easier it does come off. If you've just newly created the piece and try and pull off the paper, it doesn't tend to pull off as well. Like, you tend to rip your papers, and you know, your shapes get a little misshapen. So I like to wait. Now on this very last one, what I do, instead of the inside, I just glue the very tip of the fabric, and then I press down. And I'm just going to hold it till the glue adheres to the paper. Sometimes it struggles. You got to just keep working with it till the glue dries a little bit. And then I like to smush it, do the smush method, rub it against my surface. Also, the heat from your hands kind of gives it a little bit of a finger press on the edge as well. But there we have it. We have one cute, perfect shaped hexagon ready for us to start sewing them together. So let me get some more of these pieces done, and I will bring you back and show you what they all look like. Actually, let me do one more with you. I have another one that's kind of fussy cutted. It's a cute little bird. This one extends outside of my outside of the paper piece, but I think we can still make it work pretty well. So we're gonna go outside edge. That one I glued pretty close to the outside of the paper, which will probably cause me some problems when I go to sew. I'm going to be sewing through the glue, which can make it a little bit more difficult. Now you can, if you'd like, you can just glue your fabric. It's an option as well, instead of gluing on the paper. If you're worried that you're going to get too close, then just put it on your fabric. The fabric doesn't stick as well. It's one of the reasons why I do the paper, but it's an option. You can do it. And last one, and we hold it down. If it doesn't stick, out a little bit where you see where it's trying to attach, and give it a little bit of a press. Now I will say that if you have a newer glue stick, I've noticed that the first few that you make with your glue sticks, they don't stick as well. And that's with every single glue stick that I've used. Like, it's not just one brand or one type, it's with all of them. Like, even like if you can see this one's still trying to come up, we're just gonna glue it down again. It doesn't hurt it. It's water soluble, so no big deal. So now we have two that can be put together however you like, just, you know, doesn't matter. Now I want to do mine a little differently. I want to do my color piece and then surround it in white. That's how I want to make mine, but it's going to be a little different because that's a lot of white. So I'm going to do one row of white, one row of color. So that's kind of how I've decided to make mine on this project. So I'm going to get going on my basting, and I will be back when I have all of my fabric pieces basted. Okay guys, so I have finished basting all of my hexagons. They're kind of laid out in a pattern that I like, and I'm going to show you how to sew them all together. Now, I use a whip stitch to sew my hexagons together. There are different types of ways of sewing these hexagons. You could do a flat back stitch, you can do a ladder stitch. There's all different methods, but I prefer the whip stitch because it's faster than all the other methods. Now, on the backs of my hexagons, I always like to put the ones that I last folded in and basted down. I always start with that one and get that piece sewn first. I don't know why, but that's just the way I like to do it. I think it helps kind of hold the papers together till I'm ready to pull the papers out. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our needle with about 1 arm span of thread that is just a single thread, no knot on the end, they're not tied together, and we're going to put it through 2 to 3 strands of the fabric and pull it till you have a little tail on the end, and I'm going to hold the tail down with my finger. And then about the same stitch that I went through, I'm going to do another stitch and pull it out, trying not to knot the thread. One of the ways to help keep your thread from knotting is always thread your needle. Okay, not always, but for the majority of threads, thread your needle with the side that's coming off of the spool first, not the side you cut, and that'll help kind of keep your needle from knotting. So I'm going to pull my knot tight, and then I'm going to just take one more stitch in that same stitch that I just did. And I kind of like to hold the thread down to keep it from twisting on itself too when I'm pulling. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to go down about 1/8 of an inch to a little less than 1/8, and I'm just going to pull my thread without it knotting, which it likes to do that. Now if your thread knots on you while you're pulling it, you can undo the knot pretty easily because of the way you threaded it, but just be careful. When your thread's pretty long in the beginning, it likes to knot up. So if you kind of hold it while you're pulling, it'll keep it from knotting. But just 2 to 3 threads. Sorry, my hand keeps getting in the way. Now if you see you get a knot as you're pulling, don't keep pulling and pull that knot tight. You don't want to do that. Just kind of back out a little bit. Go to the knot, pull the knot out. Of course it would not while I'm stitching. So just pull your knots out if they happen, because they will happen. It's just kind of how it goes with dealing with thread and hand stitching. Now there are some tools that you can use, like magic thread or something like that, that'll help kind of keep your thread conditioned so it doesn't do that. I don't have any of that though. I just tend to like to hold it as I pull, and it tends to keep it from not knotting. That's real life stitching. This is how long it typically takes. It actually, I go a little bit faster, but I'm kind of far away. I'm hoping you guys can see relatively well. And once we get down to the end, we're going to go pull it a little tight, go back through, and we're going to end it with a knot. So if it does come undone anywhere along our stitches, we've got a knot here that will stop it from going any further. And then we'll go back through one more time. Like so. And that just kind of helps keep it secure. Now we're going to open it up, and if you can see, you can barely, I don't even know if you'll be able to see them on camera, but you can't really even see those stitches because we stayed as close to the edge as we could, and we did small stitches. That helps to hide your thread within those stitches. Now if you're using light thread on darker fabric like this guy, you're going to tend to see those stitches regardless how small you make them with a whip stitch. So just be aware of that. Like if you match your threads, that'll help, but if you don't want to do that, like me, you don't have to. Now when we're going to add on another piece of the hexagon, I will just go through, just travel through the back here, like so, and pull out my thread, unless it knots up. This is the kind of knot that typically happens where it's knotting up on itself, and you can just pull those out. Like it's not like a true knot. Now we're ready to join on our next one. We're still attached here, so we just pick up the next flower, find where we ended last, and attach. Alright guys, so I'm just going to keep sewing. We're going to get these all done, and then we'll show you what it looks like when we've got our flower completed. Alright, so we got that first little flower finished from the center, and as you can see, we've got our cute little kitty, a little star, you know, and then the rest of the ones just around it. Now when we go to do the next row, it's the seam process. We basically just take a piece, put it on, sew it down, and then sew it down to the other side. Now one of the things that I didn't mention is don't be afraid to bend it. Like don't be afraid to bend your paper pieces. You're not gonna hurt it if you bend it. Like that's something that when I first started, I was like, oh man, it's getting out of shape because I'm bending it, and is it gonna work right? And it will. Like it'll work just fine even if you have to bend it in order to make it work. Now I ran out of thread, so I'm rethreading my needle, and I'm just grabbing me about an arm span of thread. And once again, when you thread your needle, thread it from the side of the needle, or thread the side that you pulled from the spool first, not the side you cut off the spool. Now if you need a needle threader, grab one. I'm definitely looking into needle minders. That is something I want to purchase that I've yet to do, but I think that would be an amazing thing to have that would be helpful for this. I also have a ring cutter to help cut my thread after I'm done, but I didn't put it on for this because I don't need it as much. So we're just starting with a new thread here. Same process. Hold it down, pull it through, tie a knot, go through one more time, and on to the next. I'm hoping that you're close enough that you guys can see what I'm doing here. We're just going about 1/8 of an inch down, pulling tight. Now you can hide the thread by stitching over it. I don't like to do that just in case that piece of thread decides to move to the front. So I just leave it loose in the back. And that is how I do it. Some people like to weave it through with their, but me, I don't want it to show up on the front. So I just leave it loose. Trying to make sure my hand doesn't get in the way of me stitching. So I'm pushing the end of the needle with the thimble. I push that through. That's typically how I use it, because it kind of helps the strain. So this is what I was talking about, bending. So when you go on to the next side, go ahead and bend it. Like, it's not going to hurt it. Just go ahead and bend it down, and then sew. And when you're doing certain, ooh, sorry, I just shook the camera. When you're doing a design, it's really easy to accidentally sew to the wrong side of your hexagons. So be mindful so you don't have to unpick, because these are very little stitches. And when you have to unpick little stitches, it sucks a lot. Trust me on that. I've done it a few times, not just once, but a few. And it's probably the one thing I hate the most is unstitching. Ripping your stitches is a pain in the butt, regardless, I think, of how you're stitching. But hand stitches that are tiny is not fun. Now you don't want to go too short as well with each stitch. Like, you don't want to go like super tight together. You want to have a little bit of space between each stitch, because every time you poke through the fabric, you're kind of weakening the fabric at that point, and you don't want to end up actually having a tear because you made your stitches so close together. So about 1/8 of an inch is pretty perfect. I just did a double knot there, but yeah, so we'll just continue on to the next row. The next one will go here. We'll just keep adding them. It's the same process. You just keep stitching them together, and then once you're done, you've got a cute little hexagon flower that is ready to be added to the others. Now, when you're ready to remove the paper, you do not want to remove paper that hasn't been attached to another hexagon. So don't remove like these ones here, because they don't have a hexagon on the outside of them. But this center hexagon we could take off if we wanted to. And I found the easiest thing to do is just to kind of put your needle in there and lift that glue up. Or you can use your fingernail if you have them. But you'll just lift the glue off of it. And like I said, the longer you have them glued in, the easier it gets. But that was super easy for me to do right there. But I get to one edge, and then once you get to one of the edges, you can just take it and pull it out of the rest. Just like so. And then just kind of fold them back. Doesn't hurt it. Now if you've accidentally sewn through, like if you look on the edge of mine, there's a couple of places that I may have sewn through, but it looks pretty good. But I can reuse this one. It's not to the point where it's not usable. If they get to the point where it no longer keeps the edge shape, or they're folding too much on you, throw them out, get a new one. But you can use them multiple times until they no longer keep their shape. But there you go, that first one is all pulled out and it looks wonderful. So I'm going to finish up, get all the rest of these all sewed on here, and we'll show you what it looks like when it's all done. Okay, I'll be back. Alright guys, it is done. We've got all of the sides all sewn together. All of the papers on the back, I've already removed all the ones in the center, so I don't have to do that task later. All of the outsides, edges, like I said, still have the paper pieces in there. So this is what the back will look like when you're done. You can give this a nice press if you'd like to have it lay flatter for you. That's totally okay. But we've got it finished. So I do hope that you enjoyed watching as we are on this journey of playing with paper pieces and using the English paper piecing method to do so. So thanks for watching, and if you guys do want to purchase any of the supplies here for the papers here, I do sell them once again in my Etsy shop at Weavers Pixies. I do have that linked on my homepage, as well as I'll put it in the description down below, and where you can get some of these other supplies to make it a little bit easier for you to use this method. So thanks for watching, and I hope that you continue on this journey with me of quilting, and we will see you next time, guys. Have a great day. Like and subscribe.